You're kind of in a somewhat thankless role in these first two episodes, having to do a lot of the expository heavy lifting about the time variance authority. How difficult is it juggling, all this jargon and all this expository plot details in your dialogue?
If the TVA truly oversees all of time, how have I never heard of you until now?
Because you've never needed to. You've always lived within your set path.
I live within whatever path I choose.
Sure you do. Okay, come have a seat. I told you time moves differently in the TVA. Come on, sit down.
Yeah, it's tricky, kind of, to have to when you have to sort of set things up and give exposition. I think that the writers did a good job of sort of making it flow in a natural way that still kind of kept the scenes kind of dramatic. But yeah, it was sort of, I really had to kind of, familiarize myself with what exactly I was saying, so it didn't just sound like gibberish.
I'm not going to, but if I were to quiz you on the rules and regulations of the TVA, how well do you think you would do? Did that stuff like sink in?
I think I would get maybe a B plus, maybe.
You spoke a little about the writing. In performing the sort of witty repartee that you have with Tom, especially in these first two episodes, is that as fun as it seems, or is it more work because you have to make sure you're hitting the beats of the comedy correctly?
The timekeepers have built quite the circus. And I see the clowns are playing their parts to perfection.
Big metaphor guy. I love it. Makes you sound super smart.
I am smart.
I know.
Okay.
Those were really fun scenes to do, or it was just fun to play stuff with Tom. I think that we had a sort of a good repartee, and I think that we didn't worry about hitting, I don't think in terms of, comedy beats. I just think in terms of, does it have a sort of rhythm and flow to it that makes sense to me as I'm saying it. And Tom, we were very much on the same page with kind of if we felt that, yeah, that sounded right.
There's a lot of pretty big concepts that you, and in those conversations that you and Tom are talking about, free will, the gray areas between what is purely evil or purely good, that no one is ever truly bad or good. Is it weird to have these like very weighty conversations in what ostensibly on the surface is like a comic book show?
If you think too hard about where any of us came from, who we truly are, it sounds kind of ridiculous. Existence is chaos. Nothing makes any sense, so we try to make some sense of it. And I'm just lucky that the chaos I emerged into gave me all this. My own glorious purpose. Because the TVA is my life. And it's real because I believe it's real.
No, I mean, I never had that feeling of, now, wait a second, this is from a comic book. I guess I had, I didn't think about it being a comic book. I thought about it being the show and being the scenes that we were doing. And within that context, it made, of course, it made sense because that's the story we're telling.
Backtracking a little bit, and speaking of the MCU at large, how familiar were you with the MCU generally before being brought into the fold?
I wasn't, I wouldn't there's such a passionate fan base, and so I was certainly aware of, how Marvel has, seems to have, not just connected with a big audience, but also they seem to be critically well received. So, as an actor, that sounds like a good, opportunity to be a part of something like that. And it was really Kate, the director, kind of pitched me on the show and what the dynamic would be, and I signed on after that.
You joked a little bit in the behind the scenes featurette that like Marvel reached out to you for Iron Man, Captain America, et al. before you finally decided to sign on for Loki. In actuality, if you could go back and maybe like jump into one of those franchises before this, is there one in your head that you'd be like, oh, I would have had fun playing opposite, Robert Downey and in Iron Man?
I like the stuff with Jeff Goldblum. I thought was really good. And maybe being a part of his sort of court would have been fun. It would have been fun to play opposite Jeff. But no, I think I was clearly everything in my life was leading me towards Mobius. So I had nothing to do with it. It was already written 100 years ago.
How much you just referenced Mobius? How much deep digging did they give you? Like a reading packet to be like, here's how he exists in comic lore, to sort of as your reference?
If they did, I don't remember reading it. I think it was just talking with the writers and talking. I met with Michael and talking with Kate, and then of course, meeting with Tom before we started filming, and him, spending a few days with me, kind of going through everything from the MCU.
Yeah, I think you've spoken about the fact that he was kind of like in charge of the lore of Loki while on set, being able to sort of fill in the gaps.
Yeah, we talked about sort of the kind of attending the Loki lectures or going to Loki school. And Tom was a very, patient and kind professor. And, he could kind of sense some days when I was sort of, okay, I think Owen might be fading here a little bit. So why don't we, pick up here tomorrow? Does that sound good?
A somewhat tangentially related question. If you could use this time travel power and go back in time to any film premiere or watch an episode of TV that was like live, where and when do you think you would go?
I would like to see The Sopranos, maybe one of those last episodes would be great to see. And then from my own life, it's funny, I remember going to the premiere of Old School. And that was a really fun premiere because I loved the movie, and my parents were there, and that was a fun one.
Would you go back and try to make sure Heat Vision and Jack was picked up at Fox?
I think that Heat Vision and Jack, maybe became bigger by not being picked up. I mean, I've worked on a lot of movies that don't get talked about as much as Heat Vision and Jack get referenced.
Also, it's IndieWire, so I can't let you go without asking for some French Dispatch adjacent news. You're approaching almost 30 years since the Bottle Rocket short. What has been the secret to your relationship with Wes, and what are you most excited about people seeing with the French Dispatch?
Well, I've seen the French Dispatch, and I thought it was great, and really just so original and unique, and there's sort of three main stories in there, and I just loved I love them all. The one with Benicio and Leela Sadu. That's one of the stories I thought was really funny and good. And but they're all good. And then it does seem amazing when you say it's been almost 30 years since Bottle Rocket. You start to hear yourself saying stuff that you remember, like your parents saying, like, it doesn't feel like that long ago. And in my mind, I feel sort of the same, but I think that I'll probably see Wes here at Cannes, and to think about us sort of being roommates in Austin, Texas, at University of Texas, and meeting in the playwriting class, it just seems wild that now we're attending the Cannes Film Festival together.
All right, I gotta let you go, Owen, but thank you so much for your time. And I have to ask this one question: were you drinking real Josta?
Yes.
Is it as good as I remember?
It's better.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.